Good God, conversations that matter about faith and public life. I'm your host, George Mason, and I'm delighted to introduce to you a friend from Jerusalem in Israel. This is Hana Bendcowsky, and she is the program director for the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue in Jerusalem. Hana, welcome to Dallas, welcome to Good God, welcome to Faith Commons. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's really a great pleasure, and I'm really excited about this visit to Dallas.
Well, before we get into what's happening in your visit to Dallas, I think people would be interested to know about the Rossing Center and what you do in Jerusalem, because your specific work especially is really in Jewish and Christian relations.
Exactly. So the Rossing Center was established 20 years ago by the late Daniel Rossing, so now it's named after him. It started as a Jewish Christian organization. The idea was that Daniel thought that there's a need for an organization that would focus on Jewish Christian relations in the context of what's happening in the Holy Land.
Yes.
There are lots of interfaith organizations, Jewish Christian organizations around the world, but there the Jews are the minority and the Christian the majority.
Yes.
In Israel, it's the first time in the history,
Yes.
and the only place in the world where we are the majority and Christian the minority. And it works differently, and the dialogue should be different. And the Christians are different because we're talking about Palestinian Christians. And we have a long history of being minority. We know how to be a minority, and we did that quite well throughout 2,000 years, and we still do that around the world. But to be a majority, it's come with responsibilities.
Yes.
And you have to learn how to work with a minority. So there's a need to something that would specialize and, first of all, analyze the unique challenges of Jewish-Christian relations in Israel and the Holy Land, and also to give a space for that. And that was the idea of the organization when it was established. Daniel passed away 5 years later, and then we expanded the organization. So today we're not focusing only on Jewish-Christian dialogue, but we're focusing on promoting inclusive society, shared society for Jews, Christian, Muslim, Israelis and Palestinians in Israel. We're trying to build peace, just peace for all communities.
And this is something I think people on the outside don't fully always understand or appreciate about Israel, is what you've just described is actually what the intent of Israel was at the very beginning. But it's been difficult to carry that through, and you're trying to make sure that it is an inclusive society where everyone does have a sense of shared participation and equal rights and those sorts of things, right?
I think there's now a debate of what was the original intention of the State of Israel today. Okay. Not everyone would agree that that was the idea. But definitely things became more polarized, society became more polarized, opinions of people are more extreme, and the sentiment of the both society toward each other is more complicated and negative.
Yes.
And therefore, we try to make this place a better place for everyone to live, a safe place for everyone to live, and allow the different communities to be together, to express themselves, recognize each other.
Right.
And that's part of the work that we're trying to do.
So when we talk about Jewish and Christian relations and dialogue, the people who are going to be watching this mostly have some sense of how that happens here, partly because my partner, Rabbi Nancy Kasten, and I model that through Faith Commons, and we've been involved in different ways in Dallas with different people in Jewish and Christian dialogue, but it's actually the opposite because of the Christian majority here and Jewish minority. But before we, talk only about that difference, I think it would be interesting, therefore, for people to hear what are the key challenges that you feel in Jewish-Christian dialogue because of the very small Palestinian Christian community?
So I would say that the challenges of Jewish-Christian dialogue in the Holy Land is connected to, first of all, the question of who is the minority and who is the majority.
Yes.
You would think that Jews are the majority because in terms of number, we're 75% of the population. But we still feel a minority in the Middle East, minority in the Christian world.
Right.
These feelings have even become stronger during the last 2 years of war. And we haven't started a process of healing from a small minority that's trying to overprotect itself and keep itself close to a process that recognizing that we're the majority. And as a minority, we expect the support of the communities and the world. And the Christians, they're part of a very big majority because the Palestinian Christian are part of the Arab world and they're part of the Christian world. Of course, in terms of number, they're a minority within a minority. So first of all, the power dynamic is not clear. That's the first thing.
Unclear power dynamic is a very important thing to mention, I think. Yes.
And what is obvious here, who is the majority and who is the minority,
Yes.
in the Holy Land, it's not an objective question. It's a very subjective of self-perception. How do you see yourself?
Yes.
It's a question. It's the baggage that we brought with us from Europe. Jews came with an experience of 2,000 years of being minority, of anti-Semitism, of anti-Judaism, of animosity. Yes, of course, there are changes in the churches, in many of the Western churches, but that's the memories we carried with us from Europe. And then we come to the Holy Land, and the Christian we meet are Palestinian Christian who ask us, what do you want from us? Why do you keep raising the Holocaust and the persecution you went through?
This is not us.
Why when you see the symbol of the cross, you find it insulting when it is the symbol of our faith? So there's tension around the question of victimhood, the question of history, the question of connection between the history of Jews among Christians and the local Palestinian Christians. Then you have theological issues that are more similar to the challenges that you might have in Jewish-Christian dialogue in other places, but you have to add to that the issue that most Israelis are quite ignorant when it comes to Christianity. They know something about Christmas tree and Santa Claus, and that's about it. So the theological challenges of reading the scriptures and the right way, what God meant in the scriptures, is there one truth or many truths?
Yes.
This is a challenge.
And I would say, just, as a general rule, the tendency in the Christian community is to say that there is one truth in Scripture, right? Where for a Jew, it's a conversation. It's yes.
I would not agree on that. I think
go ahead.
Religious Jews would say, well, there is a truth. I mean, liberal people, open-minded people, critical thinking would say, well, maybe different way to read the text. But if you're talking about Revelation, I think most of Jews would say, well, there is one truth. And if you go to detail, Jesus is not in the book of Isaiah.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so that's the kind of discussion you would have. And it's a challenge, especially when people have very little knowledge about each other, Palestinians about Judaism and Jews about Christianity and theology. So that's another challenge. And then we have the conflict. We don't have Jewish-Christian dialogue. We have Jewish-Israeli, Christian-Palestinian dialogue.
Yes,
it's always like that.
Yes.
So you cannot talk about the text only.
Yes.
Because the text is connected in so many ways to the conflict. You cannot just talk about the holidays and how we celebrate the holidays, because there's always the question of, do you recognize the Nakba? Do you recognize the Holocaust? Do you recognize the suffering? What do we do in the West Bank? I mean, these questions are always there. You cannot talk about theology without talking about the conflict.
Right.
And when you talk about the conflict, it's a different conversation.
Yes.
So being aware all the time that the dialogue include the national aspect, the geographical aspect, the historical aspect, and the religious aspect. You cannot have Israeli-Palestinian dialogue that does not include religiosity or religion.
Yes.
Not necessarily God, but religion and society. And you cannot have religious dialogue or interfaith dialogue without talking about the national aspect. And then we have the challenge of language. A very technical thing that you would not have here. We don't speak the same language.
Right.
Palestinians' mother tongue is Arabic. Our mother tongue is Hebrew. And if we try to speak each other's language, it would always be a second language. And if we try English, it's the third language. So it's also difficult to express yourself in a very precise way when you don't speak your mother tongue.
So with all the different aspects of the context that you've talked about, all the challenges of having these dialogues, this is not a recipe for peace. This is a tremendous challenge to it. So how do you get to a place where you find the common ground that helps you to begin to make progress?
So first of all, analyzing the problem and understanding the problem is very important. But then the methods that we use in our programs are unique because we try to give place for the trauma and this baggage that we carry with us, and understand that when we talk about the dialogue, when we talk about relation, when we talk about attitude toward the other, it's not only concerning our opinion about the other or about the political situation, but it's connected to all kind of things, all kind of traumas, all kind of experiences that each and every person had in his own life. So my attitude toward the Christian, Palestinian Christian, is connected to so many things that happened to me, maybe even something that happened to me in my childhood, my relationship with my neighbor or with my parents, or experience I had in a trip somewhere around the world that has an impact on the way I see the other. First of all, recognizing that and trying to make this connection. We work on mindful listening, be able to listen to the other without judging it, without thinking all the time, oh, what he says is correct or incorrect, without trying to justify my side. Oh, yeah, of course he said that because we did that. Or try to be very, very open and just listen and recognize his challenges, and understanding that through that you create relationship in a different level that allows you to hear him and listen to him, not to agree, not to come to a conclusion how to solve the conflict, whatever conflict is, but just be able to listen and create kind of relationship and openness to with the other to allows you to be closer to him. And if you recognize the challenges, if you recognize how the way you read the reality is rooted in inner things that come from you and from your personal experiences, and if you learn how to be able to listen to the other and not be busy all the time with judging him or justify yourself, it creates openness to be together. It allows social closeness, to have more relationship, not just to say, okay, we play backgammon together or we eat hummus together, but we actually ready to live one next to the other.
Yes, yes. But to do that requires a level of curiosity about the other instead of assuming you already know what the other person thinks and feels. And so to do that requires time and patience and a desire to know one another, right?
So one of the goals in our organization, one of the aims that we put for the Rossing Center is to create the will and the capacity to build shared society, because it's true, there's not enough will. There's curiosity, but there's not enough will to make the extra step. And I think that's part of our work. I think the fact that we're very passionate about what we do, the fact that all the staff members and the people who work in the organization really believe in what we do, and we do believe that this is the way to have a better reality here in the Holy Land. I think that also create curiosity and increase the will of people to get involved. But of course, it's a long process. It's a long process, and we walk 2 steps ahead and then we go back a few steps because the political climate around us is changed all the time.
Well, we need to talk about that too. Okay, so this has been a work you've been up to for a while, and there was a kind of stasis in the Middle East for a period of time, if you can ever call it that, right? But October 7th, obviously, 2 years ago, was world-changing. How did it change the work you do in Jewish-Christian dialogue?
First of all, it took us a few weeks to get together. We have a mixed staff, Jews, Christian, Muslims, Israelis, Palestinians, to get together and to start process what we're going through. And then to adjust the programs, more focus on uninational activity. So having more preparation for Palestinian groups separated from the Jewish group, and only then to bring them together.
Yes.
Working again about trauma and allowing a place to discuss the traumas that we all went through on 7th of October, but then also the following days, different kind of traumas,
Yes.
recognizing the different traumas, because I think you don't have to live near the border with Gaza. You don't have to be in Gaza in order to be traumatized as a Palestinian or as an Israeli or as a Jew. I think the whole society was traumatized. It has waves that affected people all over the world.
And I was in Jerusalem that day.
On the 7th of October.
Yes. So I know something of what you're talking about. I mean, it was an enormous change that you could feel everywhere.
And
Yes.
I also think that communities or organizations that were involved in Jewish-Christian dialogue for many years were also traumatized because something in their relationship got broken.
Yes.
Miles away from
Right.
Gaza. So the impact
Right.
of this trauma need to be discussed.
Yes.
And we give it a lot of space
Okay.
to talk about it. And it's very hard because a lot of people are afraid to talk. Many Palestinian, I'm talking about citizens of Israel, afraid to talk, they're afraid to be open, and we have to find ways to feel that they would feel safe and secure enough within the groups that we're working with in order to express this trauma. And it's connected obviously to other traumas. I mean, as we Jews always connected to trauma of persecution in Europe,
Yeah.
Palestinian connected to other traumas that they experienced
Right.
in 48 or 67. So again, to allow this discussion, and it's hard and it's very heated, and less people want to participate in dialogue now, and you have again to encourage and to create the will to be involved in dialogue again. So it's...
So have you sensed in your own spirit a change in your self-understanding as a Jew during this period of time? What is it like to be a Jew now after October 7th and in this context?
It's interesting because with all the interview that I gave since the 7th of October, no one asked me this question. I think I went through a long journey since I started to be involved in dialogue and until today. And my political opinion were changed, but this feeling of responsibility as a Jew, responsibility for others, responsibility for the state of Israel, responsibility for the society, my society going through a huge crisis.
Yes.
Again, very polarized, very strong religious nationalism, a lot of hatred and animosity. I felt that I lost a lot of people. Not that they were hurt during the war, but their political opinion, their way of looking at the Palestinians, the dehumanization of the Palestinian made me feel that I cannot continue my relationship with them. So I search for the meaning of being now a Jew in Israel, and also raise many questions about the whole the relationship of Jews around the world and what happened to the Jewish community around the world in the diaspora, and what we cause them. I mean,
Yes.
they were miles away from what's happening in Israel, and what's the impact of what we do in Israel on their lives in other places. So it raised a lot of questions.
Well, and I think it's also important to realize that we are always, in our faith traditions, we're searching for that identity among even our co-religionists, right? So what does it mean for you to be a Jew among Jews with whom you disagree? What does it mean for me to be a Christian among Christians with whom I disagree? Palestinian Christians struggle with this as well. And there is an enormous sense of, I know, betrayal that many Palestinian Christians feel from American Christians who are, supposed to be their co-religionists, but they feel abandoned by them in their theology and in the way they view what's happening in Israel. So I think it's best for us often not to just say Jews this and Christians that,
Right.
because we have nuances. We have to be sensitive to some of the dynamics of division and pain even within our own faith traditions, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think what I could do right after, sometime after the war started, is to reconnect with Christian friends. We usually not some we discussed the political situation with others, but there was some closeness that was created, and I felt very connected to them. We could just meet and hug each other and cry for what's happening, or talk about what's happening with Christians.
Yes.
With the Jewish community, I think the Jewish community, well, as I said, the society in Israel is very polarized, and I think it's challenging. For me, it's especially challenging around religious. Maybe I should the religious society in Israel, the modern Orthodox, very Orthodox, ultra Orthodox. These are the communities where I grew up with modern Orthodox society. They, in a way, I find that they use religion to deny the values that I would think are part of the Judaism in a way, or not to deny it, but push them aside and have different priority. And when it comes to religious ceremonies and prayers, especially around the high holidays, when we talk about repentance and we talk about judgment, and we talk, it's harder to go to a regular religious Orthodox synagogue and repeat the confession and talk about forgiveness when the reality in Israel is very different, and people are not presenting compassion toward others that do not agree with them on their political situation, or to other people.
Now, if you could just put a mirror image up of what you just described, this is what Christians like me are going through in our country right now, with a very similar sense of the people who seem to be in charge of the country are using Christian religion for purposes of power and for national identity, and there feels like a loss of the fundamental values of compassion and the way we treat one another and welcome the stranger and care for those who are hurting and marginalized. And this creates that very same sense of alienation within your own religious group, right? So I think, much of what we are learning, it seems like, is that we are a mirror image of one another in some sense here.
And I think that's the purpose of our visit here in the US, in Dallas, is to look at each other and to learn from that. Because when you're stuck in your own bubble and with your own challenges, you think that's it.
That's right.
But when you hear that similar people deal with similar challenges, it helps us to think about it together.
Yes.
How to work toward better reality, how to follow our values in similar but very different context.
Yes.
And I think this is very important learning. This mutual learning is a very important process that we sometimes tend to forget how important it is, because we kind of closed within ourselves and thinking of, or paralyzed by the reality that we're going through, and by this feeling of alienation.
Well, Hana, thank you for coming. I'm reminded of Dr. Martin Luther King's image of a world house, that we all have to learn how to live in this house together. And we seem to be better at living in our closed rooms than finding our way to those open doors and finding our place together and to dwell. And thank you for the hard work that you're doing. It's hard work, but good work. And I pray that it will bear fruit and we will find one another and the peace that comes at the end.
And the same for your work that you're doing here.
Thank you so much.
We do similar
We look
things.
forward to your visit and for all the things that will take place. And there will be other videos of these times that people can follow. But we're very grateful for you to come. And with your partner too, John Maria. And we'll have a conversation with him, and that will be also on a good God. But for now, and until then, keep the faith.